Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another virtual event with Calyptus. Thank you so much for joining us. If you don't know who we are Web3's gamified hiring platform. Our mission is to help Web3 professionals land a top job in Web3, and a huge part of that is education. This is our special Halloween edition launch party. It is our 14th that we've actually had in terms of cohorts. How it works is 14 days that you have to become a Solana developer. There are 12 awesome projects that you go through on our platform, from building your first token to your first decentralized exchange, and the first 40 builders to complete the curriculum win 25 USDT. We've had over 1,000 developers now run through our curriculum. That's 15,000 projects that have actually been completed. This is actually it's gone 12 months now, so we're going for a full year. And we've had an amazing response from the community, and we hope you'll enjoy it too. All you need is a year of coding experience, and you can jump straight in on our website. Now, on with the show. To celebrate the launch of this cohort and spooky season with our very spooky backgrounds, we have a very, very special guest. We have Omer Griezmann at OpenZeppelin, who is head of blockchain security services there. We will be running through some of the most terrifying stories in Web3, from hacks to rug pulls, and then how we can stay safer online. Guys, if you have any questions at all, please chuck them in the comments. If you have some stories, chuck them out there. We're here to talk about this. Yeah, that's about it. Omer, over to you. You there?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me here, Dan. This is going to be fun. As I mentioned, kind of my first Halloween party for a while now, and I'm really excited about this. So let's use this opportunity to talk about a couple of crazy stuff that have been going on in the last decade in our crazy space of crypto. Just like a housekeeping note, I'm wrapping up things at OpenZeppelin soon. I'm not going to be part of OpenZeppelin. In the last 3.5 years, I was the head of blockchain security services at OpenZeppelin, mostly working on their audit and security services. And now I'm cooking a couple of new things, and soon I'm finishing my wrapping up things over there. So looking forward to the new stuff going to be working on soon.
Also, I mean, getting to a place like OpenZeppelin in the first place is no easy feat. Like, just to quickly jump into your background, like how did you get into crypto? How did you actually make it to OpenZeppelin in the first place?
Right. So I think I mean, first, like, my name is Omer Griezmann, so that makes me an OG, the initial at least. But then also I kind of consider myself an OG because I've read Satoshi's white paper back in 2012, and I was kind of really excited about that, and I saw something that is very unique. And in the last more than almost a decade now, I'm on the intersection between blockchain and cybersecurity. I started my career as a software developer and worked in cybersecurity in more kind of traditional banking. And in the last 6 years, I'm focused on blockchain security, on both on product side and on security services. And almost 4 years ago, after doing a couple of things in the space, OpenZeppelin reached out and offered me to lead their audit service, which was back then kind of a smaller team. It was almost 10 security researchers. Since then, it grew almost 4 times in terms of size, and it was a great experience. OpenZeppelin is known for its, obviously, first and foremost, for its open source contract library that is the basis of all of the smart contracts that are used today on most EVM based blockchains. But the other side of the house is the security services, mostly security audits, and we had the opportunity to protect most of the projects in the space, whether these are DeFi projects, L2s, and also getting into new ecosystems that are not necessarily EVM based. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, doing this in OpenZeppelin was a dream because it's kind of a blend of my background as a developer and then also kind of a management role and taking the best, and what's super important in our space is taking cybersecurity and security into protecting blockchain projects, which is something that is kind of a kind of an important blocker of of the real adoption that we would like to have in the space.
And just on that, so you've seen like 3 or 4 cycles. You've been, you read the white paper in 2012. You've seen a lot of stuff. What are you seeing at the moment in terms of trends around Web3 security? Like, are there any kind of hacks or vulnerabilities that are prevailing at the moment? Do you have any kind of insights there, particularly in this cycle?
Right. I think that one thing that we've seen in the last year or so, and especially in 2024, is humans and the users are being targeted, and more specifically, and in a more, I would say, customized way. Back in the days, it was most of the hacks were bugs in smart contracts that have been exploited by hackers. And what you see in the last year or so, that it shifted. Most of the attacks, or some major portion of it, is kind of gravitate towards kind of old school Web 2 cybersecurity classic attacks that are not necessarily that sophisticated, but I think that there are lots of smart contracts there that are well written, and most of the focus of the industry was around audits of the smart contract themselves, and we kind of, in some aspects, forgot about how you keep your keys safe, what are the best practices in terms of managing your systems, and all of the either governance processes or the day-to-day management of the smart contracts. Okay, and then we can talk about. I mean, one hack that we can talk about, and that has been talked a lot in the last couple of weeks, is the Radiant attack, and we can get into the details. But that's like a very good example of something that got nothing to do with smart contract bugs. It's like best practices of cybersecurity and governance of protocols. So I think that, just to kind of summarize this, we see all types of attacks still going on, but it gravitates more towards kind of classic cybersecurity, which I think that sometimes Web3 projects put less focus on that.
Interesting. And it's kind of incredible how these classic attacks are still prevailing, even with the amount of education that we are trying to push over time. I was a victim of a classic phishing scam back in 2017 to 2018. Of course, you learn the hard way, entering crypto for the first time. I think it's like 40 or 50% of Americans now are involved with crypto. So there's a huge amount of education that has to be done to ensure that everyone is safe. But yeah, that's very interesting to see that that's kind of still prevailing, and there's still a lot of work to be done around education. So I mean, let's just dive in with some of these stories. The very first one we have here, the creepiest story we have coming up is, it was in 2013. I was involved with a top layer 1 blockchain ICO. Good going. And I owned 0.7% of the total token supply. Oh, wow. In 2016, the foundation announced there was a claim process, which I didn't see and wasn't aware about. Because I didn't process the claim, they took all of it for themselves and added it to their treasury. By 2017, 2018, the market cap peaked to over 100 million.
These are, by the way, most of the stories that we're going to share are shared by community members, and then we kind of tell them.
Yeah, and we're keeping them completely anonymous. These are people who are writing in about these stories. This one isn't even to do with I would say, it's not even phishing. This is going higher. This is thinking of a foundation level kind of. This is a lawsuit kind of level stuff. What are your initial thoughts just hearing that?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, this person talks about 2013. These are the early days. That's not even the ICO boom of 2017. That's very very early. I'm curious about, like, I mean, this is before Ethereum days. So,
Yeah,
like, I assume when that person talks about an ICO, it probably would one of the uh, change that we're developing at the time. Maybe I mean, I think maybe the person mixes the dates, but anyway, there are plenty of stories out there about missed opportunities. I mean,
mm,
I've met Vitalik in late 2014, and just like we talked, he was a super nice guy. Nobody thought that would be this person's going to be so important for humanity. So I
yeah,
didn't pay too much attention. He seemed like a super smart guy, and I was happy to have a conversation. But back then, when you have those opportunity in your hands, nobody thinks about that. You don't think about pursuing that,
mm.
and like you're smart after the fact, and then you can say, okay, this is could be this that would have been a life changer for me if I just knew that. And yeah.
Whenever you're investing, Omer, do you ever think about how decentralized do I think this project is? There are obviously the spectrum where you might have projects like Cosmos is actually rather decentralized, but it's an absolute mess when it comes to kind of like DAO structuring and making decisions. I've got plenty of friends who have said it's just really, really difficult to get stuff done. Then you have the likes of Solana Foundation, which is, you know, potentially a bit more centralized. It's got your labs and foundation, but they can kind of control a bit more decisions and make decisions faster. Then you've got like Ethereum in the mid. Like what I'm from this story, it almost feels like the foundation had a lot of control to just pull the money out of their pockets because the person didn't claim it. And then there's no real kind of because of 2016, like this is the era of when the first DAO was invented and when it was actually first hacked, like the DAO. So
Mhm.
maybe just there was no DAO in place, and maybe like the power of foundations, it just kind of proves there needs to be, when you're thinking about investing, maybe there is a side of it which is there is a risk, which is perhaps the foundation could have too much power, maybe not. You've got to take that into account when you're doing your own investing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, these are definitely the early days of setting the foundations for the first DAOs and those alternative governance models. I think today, I mean, obviously, I'm not in a place to give any investment advice,
Yeah, we
and
don't do that.
yeah, and I'm myself like super skeptical about most of the projects these days. But I think that, like, as a user, as an investor, you should conduct your due diligence and try to do your best to verify the claims that the project makes. Okay, they will claim that they decentralized in this way and they control this portion of the project, or this portion of the tokens, and there's like a token allocation scheme, etc. So use don't basically trust any of those assumptions, and try to verify with the community by yourself. If you have the capability to quickly review, to review the smart contract and to see if there's are different roles that are embedded within the smart contract. So how those roles are maintained, and what type of capability do those roles have, and this is basically will be there in the code. Some of it you won't see because those keys and this ownership is managed off chain, and you won't be able to verify that yourself. You need some type of a statement from the protocol owners or the project owners. But this is eventually what's still broken in Web3. Okay, I mean, talk about the transparency. We talk about like
So,
the yeah, this is being trustless. But in the end of the day, you are trusting those assumptions. Okay, and most of that is very difficult as a user, as a community. Some of these assumptions are challenging to verify for 100%, and we see those rug pulls out there. Okay, and some of and by the way, ownership is not necessarily because something like it's a rug pull or something, someone like one of the founders did something wrong. It's just because they have a centralized authority that was hacked and it wasn't managed well. Okay, I mean, lots of the recent attacks, it's just like lots of power in the hands of like the core developers of the project, and they have been hacked. Their keys have been stolen, and it's a good conversation to have whether those what's the liability of those core developers, for example. But
Yeah.
we want to keep things fun, so maybe we shouldn't discuss
Well,
that.
to summarize, as from our Calyptus intern has said in the chat, DYOR, do your own research. The rule of thumb. It's very, very true. Everything has its own risks. You make your own decisions, and if this is something that bothers you, look for ones that are more decentralized. Look for that as a key thing if that's what bothers you. Otherwise, you can go for other ones that are less centralized. But do your own research. Okay, so the next one, and actually this one that's coming up is my story, so we're just going to jump in with it. It was 2017, and IOTA was booming as the first directed acyclic graph blockchain. I remember being very sold by that. And they had this incredible German team, and they were promising the world of infinitely scalable layer one power. And this was something where, in 2017, 2018, they were just kind of everywhere. And as a newbie, I was definitely involved in the hype train. I went to a site, and the way to generate the wallet back then, I don't know if you remember this, Omer, was when you could have those mouse tracker random wallet generators that you move your mouse around the screen and it makes you believe that it's been randomized and everything else. And I had my money in that. I had my friend's money, and then 6 months later it was gone. It was completely just drained. I don't even think these, obviously at the time, having your first hack does not feel good at all. It's a real shock, and it's your worst nightmare, really, because no one's there accountable like a bank to help you, even though the whole premise is that we're disrupting banks. But at this point, you're like, well, no one can help me out. What do you think here, Omer, in terms of wallet generation in general? This is of like a previous time. Like, is it the case of ledgers, MetaMask? How can people stay safe when it comes to their private keys?
Right. Just to have a closure on the story, were you the only one that were hacked, or was that part of like something that went on against the like the community or other users, as far as you know?
I'm actually, back then, I'm not too sure. I remember going to lots of different Reddit columns, but once it was gone, it was gone. I couldn't find it anymore. There were other things going on with IOTA at the time that I know about. I think there were some other things around just governance and other people kind of losing funds, but I don't think it was the same one.
Right. Okay. I mean, I honestly haven't seen for a while now folks use those random those random entropy generators that use your mouse, track your mouse to create basically your private keys. I mean, this is something that used to be popular, as far as I know. Don't get me wrong, by like Bitcoin maximalists that would like to create everything from scratch by themselves, and it's very dangerous. Okay, you need to have that like in like an isolated machine, and to make sure that it's done like it's done offline. Okay, it's like it's a JavaScript tool that sits on your browser and doesn't connect with any server, and used to create basically the entropy that is kind of initializing the process of private key creations. I'm familiar with that in the context of Bitcoin. I think this is part of I mean, obviously I didn't see any modern maybe an ERC20 based wallet, smart wallet today that use that and requires the user to do that kind of a process. I don't think it's really necessarily, and wallets today do a very good job in generating the master key and the private keys that used to generate the public ones and the addresses. So this is an overkill unless you like really know what you're doing.
Mhm.
Okay, if you're holding big large amounts of crypto and you would like to have that in a cold storage, that I mean, there are lots of methods out there that I'm not necessarily familiar with all of them. You have a clean Linux distribution on an isolated machine and really taking that to the next level. So I don't think it's like for like 99% of users today, it's not necessarily needed. And it's like in the context of what you're telling here, that sounds slightly BS.
Mm.
It's a nice feature to have, but it's not really uh, it's not really needed.
No, it was 100% just a fake generation site where they would then just save the private keys and the public keys. It was completely for like a brand new person into Web3. Just just a terrible way of losing money. Or have our Clippers intern saying, "My boss is so old. There were days when if you wanted to trace your money, you had to just cry about it and pray." Thank you, Clippers intern. And then we have Nishant, who's our DevRel. What do you think about on-chain forensics as a service? Are there any resources to learn on-chain investigation?
Right. Yeah, I think that there are a couple of leading companies out there, mostly Chainalysis and TRM Labs, and a couple of other companies going into the space that not only have that very strong forensic capabilities with their tools, they also give you can learn that as a profession. Okay, I think I've seen recently a couple of folks in the industry kind of really happy showing their I'm not sure exactly how you what's the name of the title that you receive, but you're basically a blockchain forensics researcher, and you use analysis or TRM labs to be capable to be using their tools to do on-chain analytics and forensics of transactions. Okay, this is not necessarily. I don't think they touch too much the code side. It doesn't make you a security researcher that be able to identify bugs in the code, but you will be able to identify movement to trace down assets as they spread throughout different blockchains. So it's very useful to once one being hacked to trace the funds, and there have been lots of there have been more success in the past in those investigations, from what I can tell.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, chain analysis are really leading the way in kind of forensics on chain. Mohammed here is saying, I fell into this trap multiple times. They asked for a freelance project or internship, which is already something people like me are looking for. And then they asked you to run malicious repos, potentially stealing your private keys and also control of your own clipboard. Yeah, it's again, it comes down to some really simple stuff that they go after, people like you and me, Mohammed, and thousands of other people. And I don't know if you have anything here to add at all, Omer, on Mohammed's comment. And this is slightly different to how he's unfortunately fallen into this trap.
Yeah, I've heard recently about lots of scams that related to recruiting and interviews. One thing that became popular recently, and actually I know somebody in person that fell in the trap, but they didn't, like, the hackers didn't manage to steal anything, but th- that person has been asked to give his opinion as a developer about the project, and he went on a Zoom call, and during the Zoom call, they, like, couple of allegedly legit team said, okay, we have this problem, somebody wants to join. They send them a link to another chat or video chat application to download and to install that, and that was kind of a malicious. That was a malicious application that took control of that person's machine, and we've hearing I've heard plenty of stories like that recently. Okay, so be super wary when you've been asked to download things. Every time there's an error, and somebody, okay, just ask you to go on a different, not to use like an official tool you trust like Google Meet or you trust Zoom, and then for all of a sudden they ask you to switch to another application. The story doesn't, everything that feels sketchy, maybe there's something there, and be uh, just be paranoid. Okay, if like, I mean, if you can summarize everything as a crypto user, as a crypto developer, anyone in the space should be at least a little bit paranoid, in the spirit of Halloween and in the spirit of what's going on in our space.
The reason we actually created Calyptus v2 is to ensure we could create more verifiability for users around employment history, references, everything, the employers, everything verified. Like if you look at the likes of the Ronin Bridge hack, that was all from exactly what you just said, which was a false recruiter pretending to be someone and then getting initial entrance into, you know, their internal systems. I think they're called Sky Mavis, to then be able to get these different private keys, to then have a majority share of the multi-signature system that they had there to drain. It was like what, 590 million. These attacks can be just off the charts. So as Omer said, I completely agree. Be super paranoid and be vigilant. Another one. I put $30,000 into Quadriga CX. Oh wow! Thinking it was a safe place to store my crypto. When the CEO Gerald Cotton died suddenly in 2019, we learned he was the only one with the access to the exchange's wallets. My money was locked up, and as more details came out, he turned out he'd been misusing client funds for risky bets. There were rumors he might have faked his death. That could be very, very true. But the bottom line was my money was gone and there was no getting it back. It was a harsh lesson in how quickly things can go wrong in crypto. I mean, this was something else, wasn't it? It was like 150 million hack. It was not hack. It was a scandal, a scam. You know, is he dead? What do you reckon, Omer?
Wow, this story, like lots of other crazy stories about founders that disappeared, are, I don't know. I think that yeah, it's a myth, and I think that what's really frustrating here for individuals in that already in the space, and for us that have been here for a while, that on one end we used to say, okay, not your keys, not your money, okay, but then like if it's too much for you and you already, maybe you have some amount of crypto and you want to put it in some place safe, okay, so you would like to trust some type of a centralized authority or an exchange, like you treat them as a bank. You want to trust those in that company, and Quadriga had some credentials back in the days. Okay, it was like it was a legit business, and it's really frustrating because I'm not, you as a user, you don't know what to do. I don't want to keep it myself, but I don't know, I'm not sure if I can trust like one of those exchanges that might be gone in a different, go in different directions. There are like very successful and trustworthy exchanges out there, obviously like Coinbase and others, and Kraken, and the list is short, but they are very trustworthy centralized exchanges out there to put your funds there. So yeah, I mean, I just can relate to the frustration, and I think that if you have some amount of crypto that you would like, that you're obviously worried about, and it's somewhere, and things start to get weird, okay, maybe there's something there, okay, move it out of that, out of that place, okay. I mean, we used to, I mean, back in the days, I had some Bitcoin in blockchain.info, okay, if you remember that website, okay, that's like a very long time
Real
ago.
OG. Yeah.
like it was the early days, and it was very difficult for me to get it out, but eventually I managed to get that some not large amount of Bitcoin back in the days to get it out. And when like you feel that things are starting to be out of the ordinary, there's something there. Move fast and get your money out.
Mhm.
Yeah, just to stay in touch with what's going on, uh, and uh, in regards to where your money is at.
And Omer, would you recommend, you know, sticking to the likes of having a ledger? You know, truly, there's more cold storage over. Yeah, of course, these are meant to be safe exchanges. You know, what would you, keeping your funds? Where would you want to keep them? Really, like the most safest place.
Yeah, I think that like most I believe that like having your own cold storage using a ledger or a treasure and add that like on your and use that to keep your funds is like a very popular method, and it's useful and makes sense. And um and as long it's not something that is, I guess, too sophisticated, like most, I mean, the funds, the type of the funds, it's more native tokens. It's something that is very easy to use and to verify while using your ledger. Okay, it's not like too sophisticated, and you don't need to like decipher X decimal hash messages. So I think it makes sense. But maybe we can hear from folks that are kind of listening what their preferred method to keep their crypto, what makes them comfortable. Did something went wrong in when was didn't work out for them in the past, and now they changed and they moved from a decentralized, like keeping their own money, to put that in a centralized exchange, or vice versa. And if somebody wants to share their kind of learning story from how they hold their crypto, that would be great to hear from the community.
You heard the man, community. Send in your stories as soon as possible. And in the meantime, we have Nishant saying, how do you recommend an organization store the keys for their users' asset pools when they frequently need to access them for operations?
Oh wow, this is a discussion by itself. Okay, I mean, there's different ways to separate between things that you need. This goes basically to a management of an exchange or asset manager, and there are different ways to do that. Okay, it depends on what you need to have available on a minutely basis, and what on a daily basis, and what's a cold storage. And I think that the internal procedures need to be very, very tight. Okay, at the end of the day, most of those hacks and things that go wrong, it's human mistakes, or human behavior that has been exploited by hackers. So it's a discussion by itself, how to have an organization set up different layers of security versus the operational need. And I think there's definitely best practices there, and it's really dependent on the business of that organization.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's very tricky. So I was actually involved with BlockFi as well when it all went, pear shaped. I managed to get all my funds back from BlockFi, but there you do have all your assets stored, and they have access to them for operations, and it all went under and couldn't get it out. But do you recommend the likes of just decentralized protocols like Lido, for example, that is liquidity staking instead of using more centralized staking platforms? Would you suggest that more decentralized pools are better than these more centralized ones?
Not necessarily. I think that um, I'll give maybe in kind of a more holistic um, perspective that I have about the space in regards to the tension between security and decentralization, and take from it whatever you want. I mean, we've been chasing decentralization as a concept for a long time, and it's still super important to our space. Okay, but I believe, coming originally from more traditional cybersecurity, that in order for us to um, have a strong security for our space, we will need to kind of give away some portion of that decentralization. Okay, I don't think that centralization, in some aspect of it, okay, it's a longer conversation to have, is such a bad thing in order to improve the security of our space, and for folks that already here to make their like engagement and experience safer, and to bring the next billion people in. Okay, without that semi centralized security, it will be very difficult for us to go to the next stage. Okay, so I mean, we see decentralization almost as something holy, and I believe it is. But in order for us to really prevent attacks, some changes in our how do we see centralization will need to. I'm being careful here, but we need to adapt. And
Hmm.
I'm slowly kind of gravitating into more like centralization in a very scripted way. Okay. And I
Yeah.
think that this is something that the industry should think about more in order to protect like projects and the users.
I mean, the infrastructure of the world is centralized. So to try and just suddenly change everything in a heartbeat into decentralized is not going to happen. So we have to be, I suppose, cognizant of, like you mentioned there, it goes in steps, and there is going to be a hybrid somewhere in the middle. And as you said, the ambition is to get to decentralization. That is the whole point of the industry. So, we have to have kind of realistic approach, but also have those ambitions to kind of provide that user ownership and yeah, decentralization. Um, Another story here. I know we've run over, by the way, Omer. Should we do a couple more? How are you doing for time?
Yeah, let's do at least one more story and see
Okay.
where we're at. Yeah.
Um, I mean, this one isn't. I'm gonna read it out anyway. I don't even. It's not even a. Okay. I wouldn't say this is a hack or a scam, but it's worth reading out. A friend of mine went to a seminar on how to sell on eBay in early 2010. At the end of the presentation, the presenter goes completely off topic and gives a quick little pitch on why everyone in the crowd should throw $100 at Bitcoin, essentially begging everyone not to pass up on it. Why my buddy remembers most what my buddy remembers most about it is that he said that if you want to retire yourself and your family for several generations, buy $1,000 in Bitcoin right now. So this is 2010. The presenter didn't stand to make anything of it really. He was just incredibly excited about it. My friend did not spend $1,000 on Bitcoin, which he would have got 10,000 at the time, and today, at the top of the peak, it would have been worth 600 million. Needless to say, he doesn't like to talk about it. I mean, this is not a hack or a scam, guys, but this is just bad timing. What would you have to say about that, Omer?
Yeah, I think the the internet's graveyards are full with people with the same stories, and what you should ask yourself, I think, I mean, obviously that person think, okay, this is too late, I've missed the train. But if you ask any like real crypto person, they would say, okay, let's have this conversation that we're having now in 10 years from now, and
Exactly.
you could have joined, you can have bought your first Bitcoin today. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not too late. Okay, so if you think, and you a believer, and you run your own due diligence and risk management, and you don't spend any money you're willing, that is your life saving, and you are okay with some ups and downs, etc. Do this now. Okay, it's not too late. Like
Yeah.
it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning. Exactly. There is no time machine, unfortunately, that you can jump back in 2010, but you can think about what today is going to be that investment or that next Bitcoin. So
Yeah, I think
yes.
I saw recently a survey that like that goes like year after year, that asks people, if you go back in time, what would you say to yourself? And in the last like couple of years, like that shifted drastically. Everybody, like the top answer is like, I tell myself to buy Bitcoin or crypto. That like that really changed it. Yeah.
I 100% told myself that, like, oh, why did I get in 2017? Why isn't it more like 2012? Everyone definitely has those thoughts. Okay, well, not a hack or a scam, but think about the next opportunity ahead of you. There's another one here. Again, I wouldn't say this is a hack or a scam, but it's a story to tell because this is actually quite a famous one. It's about the sad story of James Howells, a British computer engineer who bought 8,000 Bitcoin early in 2013. The summer of that year started his nightmare when he threw out the wrong hard drive into the trash while cleaning his office. Oh, God. And it was the hard drive that contained his private keys and Bitcoin wallet. Since then, Howells has been adamant about recovering his Bitcoins. He believes the hard drive is buried somewhere in a landfill in Newport, South Wales. It's like a treasure hunt, basically. So he's been trying to get permits to excavate there, unsuccessfully so far. His last proposal from 2022 is using an AI-powered mechanical arm to filter the trash and then check it manually in a nearby facility. All of this with the help of 12 million raised from a hedge fund. Wow, he's literally got millions in funding just to find this hard drive. What do you reckon, Omar? 2013, has he got any luck? 11 years later?
This is probably one of the most famous crypto stories out there. But I mean, I've just read that person is suing the uh, the city council for don. I mean, I'm suing the council for 495 million British pounds because they won't give me back my bean bag. Okay, it says okay because he sues he's suing the council for not giving the opportunity to basically look in the dumpster by himself, to search in the dumpster. So he's suing them for all of the money, the potential of the money. So okay, it's I think the story has been going on for 10 years now. How long is it? Yeah.
A long time, 11 years.
Okay, I think it's that person life project, and it's worth the investing the time. Okay, I really hope that that person really uh, gets that hard drive and is actually able to salvage it.
Mm-hmm.
It will be challenging from like a physical perspective of kind of trying to salvage an hard drive.
If there's something out of this, I would say always have backups. Like that was your hard drive, and that was the only thing that had access to your wallet, and you threw it away. So why did you not have your seed phrase parked somewhere else, hidden away? Why did you not kind of put it in a safe or a drawer, or with a guardian, or you know uh, I would say that have backups and keep them safe and keep them hidden.
Yeah, and on top of that, even for your personal crypto, have kind of some basic drills. Okay, once in a while, maybe every 6 months. I mean, if it's just like in a drawer somewhere, every 6 months or once a year, just make sure that you connect your wallet, and maybe just make sure that you upgraded the version, and you know how to where's your seed phrase, because folks tend to forget that, or maybe they have problems. Okay, I myself had that problem in the past with the kind of a very old version of not the blockchain info one, a different, and I was able to save that, but that was kind of very challenging technically to do that, because that was sitting in a wallet that haven't been upgraded for a while. So just make sure that you once in a while just like make sure that you have access to those funds.
I remember when I wrote a post last year about when ERC, I think it was 4337 came out. And it was all about social recovery. So instead of, if you lose your keys, you've got someone else to help you out, a guardian. Like, have you seen any developments there? I saw Argent was kind of leading the way. I haven't really seen where it's gone since. I don't know if being close to OpenZeppelin or from your position, you've seen any of this before, or how it's working, how it's going.
I believe you're talking about the development around account abstraction.
Of course, and
Okay.
that element of the social recovery side.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't. I mean, there are lots of projects there that develop on top of that, specifically on social recovery and social login. I haven't seen the project, but I can ask around, and I'm familiar with the person that is running uh, this project on behalf of the Ethereum Foundation. But there are plenty of that's a good question. There are plenty of projects built there on top of that, and I think it's a very useful account abstraction by itself is a very important progress in terms of user experience for Ethereum. And the adoption is much slower than we have expected, but it's the right way to go. And I hope that like we have more and more projects that just build smart wallets, safe
Yeah.
smart wallets for people to use.
I think some of the scariest stuff for my parents is like, okay, well, if I lose my keys in my wallet, then I haven't got. It's in the UK, it's like £80,000 that you'll get back from the bank if you get your money stolen, and that doesn't exist in crypto, and that for a lot of people was difficult. It's difficult to swallow that feeling of like, what if? So having those last lines of defense, which is social recovery with guardians or something there which can recover your keys, I think would be critical for a lot of people who are very worried about crypto, and kind of unlock those next layers of mass adoption moving forward.
I mean, if my parents would have asked me about like they would like to own crypto, I would suggest them to do that in a centralized, well regulated, trustworthy exchange. That's perfectly fine. Okay, and uh, just go to Coinbase or Kraken or whatever and do that. That's like they're like super legit, strong, successful entities, and it's not. Uh, there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a very good, safe way to do that.
Interestingly, if things go wrong, just like BlockFi, a lot of these things do end up being kind of recovered, even though it's a lengthy process. I think that's the thing, the sticking point for my 75-year-old father, trying to figure out how and when he should be buying his crypto.
And by the way, just if one of those exchanges will lose your funds or go rogue, you can go to the government. Okay, you can go to the police. Okay, it's just like if you want to be super paranoid. So yeah.
There you go. Call 999 in the UK. It says here we've got. Oh, actually, we can end on this question. This is quite a nice one, and perhaps this is more tied to careers. And maybe Omer, you have some advice here. What's your advice to candidates in developing countries? But let's go just broad anyway. I think it's difficult to get into Web3 in general. We know that the whole problem of getting to Web3 is around skills. How do we get skills to people in third world countries, even especially young people as well? How do we help people get into the industry? Is it likes of hackathons? Is it paid opportunities? What are your thoughts around this?
First of all, I don't think that Web2 experience, whatever it means, is mandatory to enter Web3. Okay. Although us and Web3 think that we are better than Web2, so we call that Web2 plus plus, and that makes us better than them, which doesn't make sense at all. I think it's a very bad branding. But regardless, I think that like Web3, there are lots of opportunities there in terms of education, and you can become a developer, a security researcher, or just a user in Web3 without any Web2 so-called or academic experience. Okay, it's lots of people are doing that, and it's very possible to do that in any country in the world, just with access to just with web access. So I don't think uh, it's a blocker, to be honest.
Yeah. So, for example, this really smart young lady called Anam. The reason how she got into Helios Labs in the Solana ecosystem, she did that all from building in public. If you're able to build in public and prove, you got to start off at the very beginning. We have free education courses, by the way, on Calyptus. There's the whole reason why we're doing Learn to Earn, and we even have a free full end-to-end Ethereum curriculum. Get the wheels turning, start building projects, start contributing to open source projects. It's exactly what Anam did, and she's not very, she's like just on her master's out of university. So she ended up building for Solana Mobile, got noticed, landed a job, at Helios Labs. So just anything to take away from that is building in public and committing yourself to something that's open source, which is very Web3, you will get noticed. A huge amount of the Solana Foundation team themselves have just been hired because they were noticed building within Solana. So that's a takeaway. Build more in public and get noticed.
For sure.
All right, guys. Well, we have definitely run over, but it has gone super quickly. Omer, thank you so much for joining for this call. We wish you all the best on your next move, wherever it is from OpenZeppelin. And guys, of course, this is the official start ceremony of Learn to Earn 14. You can dive in now. Our DevRels will be in the Discord if you need any help. And best of luck. Omer, thank you so much again, guys. See you next time.
Thank you, Dan. Bye-bye.